Well, welcome back on the AM show. We're talking education, of course, and the Ghana National Association of Teachers is calling for a better situation for teachers. They are saying that they want government to make the life of teachers better, especially those in riverine communities. GNAT is worried about the struggles of these teachers in their quest to make academic work easier for their students. Now, joining us for that conversation, we have Thomas Musa. He is General Secretary of GNAT. Dr. Peter Anti is Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies, and Divine Kwe is Programs Manager, Africa Education Watch. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Good morning to you, Divine Kwe, in the studio. Good morning to Mr. Musa and Dr. Anti as well.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning to yourself and to all the panelists.
Right. I think it's only fitting, since those of you joining us via Zoom, you could face technical challenges. So let me start from your end. Mr. Musa, so you have brought this to the fore, and recently you made that donation to some of those along the Volta Lake in the OT region. But let's start the conversation off talking about the general situation of the teacher in Ghana. And then we can narrow in on those in some of those riverine communities and the many challenges they face. From where you sit, what do you get to see on a daily basis?
So thank you very much. And then once again, good morning to the panelists, yourself, and to all the viewers. It is important to place on record that where we are now, starting from the rural area, is not good. It's not good at all. Like I indicated earlier on, in the hinterlands, taking specifically Kitikrachi West, we have 46 schools, we have 46 communities, out of which we have only 21 communities that have schools. And therefore, the 25 other communities that do not have schools will have to travel to the remaining 21 schools to secure or to access education. The question is, how do they get themselves to those communities to access education? That is something that we all need to answer. They go there at the risk of their lives. Not they themselves alone. They go there together with their teachers. So that is the risk we're talking about. Aside that one, since 2009, the agreement was that a teacher who accepts posting to those areas, the person must be paid 20% of his gross salary as accepting postings to that particular to the underserved areas. As we speak, since 2009, it has not been paid, and it is something that we are fighting for, that it should be done. Recently, a teacher lost his life on the lake at Kitikrachi, and so to sum up the issues at stake, we think that if nothing is done, 2030 will come and meet us. And we will left many people behind. And not only leaving them behind, we have some of them dying in the course of accessing in attempt of they wanting to get education or quality education. And these are things that we are talking about. And we are asking that the media and all stakeholders and also the entire civil society organizations, let us all come on board. Look, the children there, when you go and see their condition, and my brother, you shed tears for them. And it looks like those parts are not part of Ghana. The only time you see politicians going there, it is only when there's going to be an election. And once they go there and get what they want, they leave the people to their fate. And I think that must stop. That cannot stop. We must stop. We cannot push the children into child labor, deny them of their teachers. Look, the issue of sanitary pad, they don't have them. Life jacket, they don't have them. Looking for boat to go to school, they don't have them. Time will not permit me to mention all those things. Why? What crime have they committed? What crime have they committed? Or what have they done against us? That we are telling them that are they not Ghanaians? Don't they deserve part of the national cake? And we are saying that enough is enough. We must remember them. They are our people. We don't have anything to do than to help them also to get their fair share of the national cake. And look, the final thing I want to say is that I always been saying that, look, assuming these children were to be 18 years, wouldn't they have been holding a press conference? Well, they have gone on demonstration and all that. But because they are children, nobody is listening to them. And when West come to West, they go into child labor. So, Joy, I want to commend you this morning, at least for the time that we devoted in getting this thing done. I believe that it should not end today. Let us remember, they are our children. We have our mothers there. We have our fathers there. And the only way we can break the cycle of poverty in those areas is by education.
Thank you for those initial comments, Mr. Musa. Let me come to you, Dr. Peter Pateanti. For you, what is the general state of the Ghanaian teacher? And how far away are we from, let's say, the benchmarks internationally that you would expect when it comes to teaching? I'm not even trying to compare us to the Scandinavian countries who are way up there, but averagely.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners and viewers. I think that I've never been a fan of how we treat teachers in this country. From the time that some of us entered basic education until this time, with our experience with teaching and all that, the Ghanaian teacher is not giving his right place in the sphere of things, and that cuts across whether it's through promotion, whether you are talking about conditions of service, or you are dealing with the environment that they work. The Ghanaian teacher is not treated fairly, and I make this point because even in the urban areas that we are talking about, most of the teachers, some of them, do not have the requisite teaching learning resources that they need to be able to deliver education that they are mandated to do. So if those in the urban areas do not have these resources to do what they are supposed to do, what about those in the rural settings who sometimes would have to travel miles to be able to get to a school which is filled with reptiles? Sometimes they have to cross rivers, sometimes they have to use their motorcycles, and all those things in their quest to help students learn. It's just a matter of putting in place a special mechanism to ensure that the teacher is giving the needed, if not in terms of his salary, the needed resources to be able to work effectively and deliver the mandates that he or she has been given. So the Ghanaian teacher, I think it's high time that we get back to the drawing board and look at the conditions of service of the Ghanaian teacher. Look at the provisions in terms of resources and other things that the Ghanaian teacher needs to be able to work effectively. And some of these things should be led, and as my brother Musa is saying, should be led by the unions themselves. They should continue to push government, because if you leave government like this, the teacher in the rural setting and even those in the urban areas will continue to complain about the difficulties that they go through. And unfortunately, when results come and it is not in good shape, we turn around to blame the teacher. Surprisingly, when we were doing COVID, I mean, in the period of COVID, you saw how parents were complaining about when school reopens. Even when students go on vacation, you see how parents react. So we understand the enormous burden on the Ghanaian teacher, but unfortunately, we have not been able to structure our system in such a way that we'll be able to get the commensurate compensation for the teacher because of the enormity of the work that the teacher does. So I think that we need to sit down and have a second look at the provisions that we make for the Ghanaian teacher. And that should definitely be led by the teacher unions and all of our stakeholders, so that we push government to have a second look at the conditions of the Ghanaian teacher.
Thank you for those initial comments. Let me come into the studio now. Divine Kwe is here. Divine, what would you make of the state of the Ghanaian teacher? You know, it's often said that the reward of the Ghanaian teacher is in heaven. We all want to make it to heaven, right?
Yes. But what if you don't get there? So,
but what if you don't get there? That's a good one. So if you don't get to heaven, then you ought to have got your reward elsewhere, which is here.
Yes, you must get it here. And it's very important that we prioritize teachers when it comes to their condition of service. First of all, let me commend GNAT for the step they've taken to supply life jackets to the pupils and their teachers. It is very important that we prioritize that when it comes to children that are in island communities. Their safety is very important. So GNAT, thanks for that initiative, and encourage you to map up other communities that are in island communities and help them as such.
Right.
Then, the quality of teacher and then the adequacy in the classroom is very important when we want to achieve the SDG 4. So if you look at the SDG 4, one of its targets actually puts premium on supplying adequate qualified teachers. And if you look at our education strategy plan, we have also made mention of that. And one of the policy objectives in that particular plan is to improve mechanism for teacher management, which includes how teachers are recruited and deployed and also retained, especially in the underserved areas of the country. And in 2019, we have developed a roadmap on how we want to manage teachers in terms of their deployment and also for retaining teachers that are in underserved communities. But at the end of the first medium term of the education strategy plan, that ended in 2021, from 2018 to 2021, CDD actually did an evaluation of the first medium term plan and was realized that we still have over 5,200 classrooms in underserved areas that are without teachers. Basically because teachers are not accepting posting.
I was just about to get to that. Teachers refusing postings.
Exactly. They are not accepting posting, or even if they accept posting, averagely, they spend less than 2 years in such communities. So teacher attrition in such area is so high. So it's very important that we begin to look at the whole and a broad picture of how we can retain teachers. For me, the whole thing is about how inequitable developmental project or program has been in the country. Because if we are talking about teachers in underserved areas, basically it's because development has not catch such areas. So if government is cautious about extending development to such areas, I'm sure the situation would have improved for everybody, including the teacher, and then the teacher would have loved to be there. If you look at the 2021 district league table, you'd have realized that we are still there's a lot of disparity when it comes to closing the gap in terms of development projects in the country. For instance, when you take basically access to safe drinking water, while some districts, the inhabitants have 100% access to safe drinking water, there are communities that you can still find less than 1% of the inhabitants having access to safe drinking water. If you take a district like Nanton district, only 1% of the inhabitants are having access to safe drinking water. And then also in terms of sanitation facilities or access to sanitation facilities, while we are attaining 100% access in some districts, and I'm using district generically, it can be a municipality. So some districts still don't, or inhabitants still don't have access to sanitation facility, and then also electricity coverage is still low in many parts of the country. So if you want to ensure that we post teachers and they are there, it means that we need to take the whole picture and how we can close the inequity that exists in our development agenda. So often we have concentrated development in several parts of the country, which is not good. If you want to do the regional disaggregation of data, some people are still far away in terms of development. So what we need to do is to begin to look at closing the disparity that exists in social development. I'm sure if government consciously is able to close that gap, and that teachers in the community, they are able to have access to health centers, they are able to have access to good drinking water, electricity coverage is there for everybody, teachers will accept posting to such areas. So for me, the starting point is for the country or the government to begin to look at closing the developmental gap that exists. Once we are able to channel resources equitably in closing that gap, would have been solving the problem at a very broader level. And once that is addressed, why not? Teachers would always want to be in areas that have the basic facilities that will make life comfortable for them. So yes, government has to do a lot in terms of how teachers in underserved areas are retained, and then also how they are managed broadly in terms of they being able to accept posting to that areas.
I just want to dwell briefly on this point, gentlemen. I want us to make tracks very quickly. But when you look at issues like, so the conditions of service of the Ghanaian teacher across the board, across the spectrum, the conditions of service, the well-being of the Ghanaian teacher and how government sees to it. I'm looking at things like health insurance. I'm looking at things like access to technology. I'm looking at things like housing. Look, in some places, even electricity is an issue. On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you peg the conditions of service or the level of appreciation of the Ghanaian teacher? I'll start with you, Thomas Musa. I don't want a lot of talk on this one. I just want us to go straight for the jugular. 1 to 10. And I'll run it by all of you, gentlemen. Mr. Musa. Hello, Mr. Musa, if you can hear me, please unmute.
Yes, I'm saying that given the scale, I'm sure we should be around somewhere 3. We've not gotten anywhere. We should be around somewhere 3.
What would explain the figure of 3? 3 out of 10 is a fail grade. So why 3?
Certainly, we should be around somewhere 3. Look, most of the things that the teacher will need to deliver is not there. When you employ a staff, the employer has 3 main duties. You employ a competent staff. Number 1, you provide the competent staff with all the tools, the equipment that the competent staff needs to deliver. Then the last one is supervision. But here we are. The kind of tools, the equipment that must be provided, they are not there. The kind of compensation that must be given to the teacher, those things are not there. Teachers travel, into very difficult areas. Some of them lose their lives, among other things. And all these things go unnoticed, among other things. So, regarding the tools, as we speak, time will not permit me to tell you. And I've been talking about this one. Capitation grant is in arrears for over 3 years. What do you say to this thing? And when the teacher is transferred, the transfer grant is not paid. The CISOs, the resources they need to go and get the school supervisor and all those things, they are not paid. GOGs to the schools are not paid. And even the running of the basic schools, the head teachers will have to look for money to run the schools. The later government will come and reimburse them, among other things. So time will not permit us. And I've already indicated earlier on that when you accept postings, when teachers accept postings to the underserved area, they are supposed to be paid 20% of their gross salary. These things are not done. Promise that they will give teachers housing, among other things, to attract teachers to deal with those difficult areas. They are not done. So when you are even, I think I have even been charitable. The 3% have even been charitable. Thank you.
All right. So the 3, which is 30% basically. So 3 out of 10.
Yes.
Just a quick follow-up. Has the Ghanaian teacher become worse off now comparatively? Since you are giving such a low grade, is the Ghanaian teacher better off now or before? So for what I'm trying to say is, where we may be at 1 or 2 earlier and now 3, though it is bad, it's an improvement, or have we retrogressed?
It's a cumulative thing. You see, it will be difficult to locate it to one particular regime and say that it's a cumulative thing. You see, as you are going along, some of the things will go up, appreciate a bit, and some also deteriorate. So it is a cumulative thing, and it will not. You cannot describe as a summative thing or this thing happen at one particular time. It's a cumulative issue, and we need to find the way best of addressing it. Let me give you an example. And I was happy Dr. Antti was maybe mentioning it. Recently, when the NTC published the result that 85% of the people who sat for the licential exam failed, and we are talking about only 15% pass. The question we need to ask ourselves: did the students those who could not make it, were they at KG? Were they at the primary school? Were they at the JHS? Did they go to the universities? Did they pass all these exams and finally got to the NTC and they could not make it. It should be a wake-up call for us that there is something wrong with our educational system in terms of what the teachers are teaching, in terms of the kind of resources we provide and all that. And we need to arrest the situation as soon as possible. We should stop paying lip service to the education system because that is our future. And that is the only weapon to break poverty.
Right. Same bit to you, Dr. Anti. What would be your score and why?
Well, if the General Secretary of GNAT says their conditions of service he will rate them at 3%. I cannot go beyond that.
Well, it's not 3%. It's 30%. He said 3 out of 10, which is...
Oh, okay, 3 out of 10, yeah. I was going to say 1 out of 10, seriously, because I have to state...
Clarify, are you saying 1 out of 10 or you were going to say? Are you saying it? 1 out of 10?
I was going to give them 1 out of 10, but the secretary said 3, so maybe I would reconsider that and say 2%. 2 out of 10. And the reason is simple. I've never been a fan of the teaching profession, how it is treated in Ghana, although I love to teach. I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher all my life. And this is because the way teachers are treated in this country, it's an eyesore. It's not a profession that if you don't have the kind of heart and the commitment to venture in, you would. And that is why every now and then, a lot of people enter, they find something more profitable doing, and then they leave. Okay, so the profession has never been, in the way that we treat it in this country, have never been the kind of profession that one would be proud of entering into. And if that is the case, I don't think anybody would want to rate the current status of the Ghanaian teacher above 30%. I don't think so. It's something that we have to sit down and have a very passionate and objective discussion about. What kind of education do we want to provide our children? What do we need to put in place to ensure that this kind of education is delivered? In terms of the teacher quality, what are the things that needs to be given to the teacher so that the teacher will be able to deliver as we expect him to deliver? When we are able to put these things in place and the teacher is not delivering, then we can come out and talk about some of the things that are happening in terms of student performance and all those things. But as it stands now, there is nothing that we are giving the teacher that is so motivating enough to ensure that the teacher comes out wholeheartedly to deliver whatever mandate that is going to do, to deliver. That's why we say that a lot of people who go into colleges are those who do not technically have most of them do not have the requisite qualification to do that. Those who have the willingness to pursue other careers and they have passed well, they want to do other things. Even those who go through the college system, when they get to the various places that they have been posted to, you see them asking for transfer to other places that they think that they can perform well. What kind of profession could this be? Okay, and we all pay lip service to it. You look at various party manifestos every now and then. They are promising things. You don't need to just increase the salary of the teacher. Just make sure that the teacher gets free health care. Just make sure that the case of the teacher is catered for very well. Just make sure that his insurance and pension things are well taken off. Just make sure that his housing and a little a source of transportation is provided. And then the teacher would be satisfied within to be able to deliver whatever he's supposed to deliver. Remember, the teacher is nurturing kids. Who can nurture a kid in a state that the person is hungry, the person is threatened by reptiles when he enters school, the person is threatened by various kinds of accidents on his way to the school, the person is not having a very good accommodation? How do you expect such a person to approach this profession with the kind of love, zeal, and enthusiasm that we want to happen? It's not going to happen. And none of our leaders, they like the cameras. So now you will see them do one or two things, put them on TV, on radio, on various social media platforms, and that is it. But the fundamental challenge and problems that the teacher is facing continues to exist.
All right.
I think that we need to be serious if we really want to change the educational system. And it starts from how we treat our teachers. So 2 over 10, 20%, or even less.
All right, let me come into the studio. Divine, I want you to be a bit more brief on that same point. What would you say in regard to that question?
All right, Ben,
With regard to that question.
I really don't know the waiting to give to it, but the fact remains that we are far from reaching where we would want our teachers to be. It's very important.
Do you think 2 and 3 are fair?
Well,
grades to give?
Musa and then Dr. Peter are giving such mark. I won't disagree with them. For me, I know that we are still far from where we want to be. Because if you look at the status of teachers globally, the ranking, we are not close to even looking at the outstanding countries when it comes to improving the lot of teachers. We are not close to any of the countries. We are very, very far away.
Which countries are you comparing us with?
Well, we're talking about the U.S., the advanced countries, of course, Finland.
So when I posed the question, I said we should take out, for example, the Scandinavian countries, among others. I mean, they rank really high up there, averagely.
You know, we are learning from such countries so that we can improve in terms of best practices. So we need to look at what they do. Of course.
But sometimes you would agree that the comparison now is a bit unfair.
I agree with you that we are still making a progress. It's a progress we are making. However, it's very important. If we want to learn best practices from such country, we need to at times do the comparison. You see what they are doing for their teachers in terms of remuneration, in terms of teaching environment, in terms of teacher autonomy, and then how they are managed generally. So for me, we can learn from such best practice, and if we compare, it's not any bad idea. So we have a long way to go when it comes to improving the lot of teachers in the country. Aside their salary, the environment that teachers teach in, the least talk about such environment, the better. And in terms of how management even relate with teachers, at times you would even be surprised whether this is a working environment, how those, especially those in the education directorates, and then when it comes to school and how they talk to teachers at times we don't want to talk about such things, but they also often part of how teachers want to be treated in the profession. How the management at the district education directory also relate with teachers. Do they relate to them with like people that they are working with, or they are relating with them like a boss and then a subject level of employment? That should not be. So for me, if we want to look at the condition of the teacher, then it has to be broad, not just the salary of the teacher, but the environment that the teacher is teaching in. How management and the district education director, they are also related with the teacher is very important. And then we can also talk the teacher autonomy. What's the level of autonomy the teacher has in terms of making some decision on his or her own when it comes to teaching and learning?
Let me come to Thomas Musa on this. So expanding on the conversation we're having, in those riverine communities, we note that time and again, students have drowned, teachers themselves have drowned. And in that latest, outreach that your outfit conducted in the Oti region, Kratchi East, Kratchi West, along the Volta Lake, you visited some of these communities, 36 of them, donated 251 life jackets. Now, we know of the drownings that have happened in the Fana area, among others, and on the Volta Lake just this year. We've lost about 15 people, children, to these. So just to get into the state of the Ghanaian teacher, how bad is it, this incident? And how many of such communities are we looking at generally?
But the situation is terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible in a sense that if you look at Kete, for example, like I indicated, there are 46 island communities, 46. And of this number, you have only 21 communities that have schools. So it means that the remaining 25 communities where we have school children will have to cross over to the remaining to the 21 communities in order to access basic education. Now, guess what? On their way to those 21 communities, they use boats that are in a very bad shape. That is number two. You have children between the ages of 11, 12, and some below that, who will be handling the canoe or who pedal the canoe to the where they are going to school. So the question is, if a 12-year-old boy will not be allowed to drive in the urban areas, why should a 12, 11-year-old boy or girl be allowed to handle the canoe together with his colleagues on their way to school? These are things that we are talking about. And aside that one, the teachers in particular, they are there, they don't have life jackets. The students also don't have them. So when you are going, your destiny and life and everything is in the hands of the Lord. When the worst happens, so be it. You are gone. Nobody will see you again. And if you look at the kind of boats that they are using there, the boats are terrible. The boats belong to individuals because they don't have money to replace them. Even when they are going, you have to be fetching the water out of it. You have to be fetching the water out of it until you arrive at your final destination. The question is, we keep on asking, why? For how long are we going to allow this thing to happen? And so once and if you come to the Ketekrachi East there they have about 15 communities. And I think all of them have schools there. And we gave them life jackets some time ago. And we have gone to, we've given 250. We intend to go to the Brong Ahafo region, Kwame Danso, and the other areas. So we'll go to the northern region, Makango, among other things. Then we'll come to Fana, where we lost some children recently. We want to go there too. And please, let me add this one. We are not only talking about life jackets. The girls that need the sanitary pads to enable them stay in school. These things are very, very important. These are basic necessities that the children must have, and the teachers also must be provided with all the needed logistics to enable them provide quality education to our children. Look, if time will not permit us to be talking about this in the whole day, but I would want to indicate and also thank Joy FM that this particular campaign should be sustained for a long period until all our children, our grandmothers and grandfathers, and everybody on the island gets what it deserves, so that at the end of the day, we can say that nobody has been left behind. Right. Otherwise, as the conditions are now, if you ask me, both for the teachers and the students, they are terrible, and they risk their lives on a daily basis.
For you, Dr. Anti, I mean, the last time we heard of an incident of a teacher drowning was in May, when a teacher actually lost his life serving on an island called Agam, Kope. And that was what happened in that instance. Yes, the Ghana National Association of Teachers has embarked on this outreach. What more do you want to see from government's end? I mean, we've been speaking about students drowning. Teachers are also drowning. From this end, what action would you want to see in the next, let's say, quarter of the year?
Thank you very much, Ben. Let me be frank with you. I don't know what our leaders or authorities do with data and statistics in this country. Because just last year, the Ghana Statistical Service released proximity to essential services report. And it was clear in there the number of communities that do not have access to all 3 levels of basic education, early grade, kindergarten, primary, and junior high school. The report was so explicit on that. Apart from that, every year, the Ministry of Education, through its MS data, do what they call the annual census school survey, and they collect data on all schools in the country. So as we stand here, I can assure you that the ministry knows the resource that each basic school have in this particular country. They know, just by a click, they will be able to know all those information. So it's about how we use this data to solve the problems. And these are people our leaders are not willing to do. They are interested in the cameras. They are interested in getting political capital from the little that they are supposed to do to ensure that education service is sustained. So I don't think there's anything in the plan within the next quarter or even the remaining half of the year for these communities. I don't think they have any plan for them. If they do, then they should let us know what they have for these communities that do not have schools or they have difficulty in accessing schools, and these communities that have schools that people need to travel by crossing rivers and all those things. Let us have a press conference by the ministry or the Ghana Education Service detailing or telling us the plan and the strategy that they have for these schools for the rest of the year, then we can see the foresight that they are putting some of these problems with. But I can assure you, there's no plan. They are waiting for another disaster to occur so that they can visit the community and then take pictures and splash them on social media. Sorry.
What then would be your call on government on this matter? Like I said, so we've entered another quarter, okay? What would be your call on government? You say it doesn't appear that there is any plan. The Education Ministry is there. The Ghana Education Service is also there. What then would be your petition to them? You have the platform.
They should go back to the data that they have.
Which is which one?
Their MS data. Or they should just visit the Ghana Statistical Service and then look at the proximity to essential services reports that was published last year. I don't think that they are not aware of this. They know all these things. They should go back to it, get these communities, do a strategic plan for the next, let's say, 6 to 1 year. 6 months to 12 months, or maybe for the next 2 years, what plans they have for these communities that do not have access to any form of a basic education. What plans do they have for these communities that people will have to travel by river or whatever it is to get to? They should have this plan published for all stakeholders and then call the general public to support them if it is resources that they do not have. I know NGOs that are doing work, the NAT is doing these things. So if they bring out this plan, the policy that they have for these schools, for these communities, and then they publish and they call for support from stakeholders, I know a lot of people will come on board and help get rid of this kind of disaster that we seem to be recording every now and then. So that is the first thing I'm calling on them to do. They should visit the statistics and the data that they have, pull out these schools, pull out these communities, draw a strategic plan for the medium to long term, share it with the general public, and let all of us donate, contribute to ensuring that these communities are given the needed kind of education that they deserve, and the teachers are also provided with the needed kind of support that they need.
All right. To cap off the conversation, gentlemen, I would like to look at what the way forward is as I come into the studio. Divine, so in terms of what is happening to the teachers, obviously, a teacher without a sound mind. A teacher is wondering, look at the situation with Ransford Appiah, assistant head teacher of Kudokope DA Primary School. He says they have to cross the lake from Dambai to Kudokope every day. You keep thinking, am I going to make it today? Will I come back? Will I not make it? When your heart is in your mouth, how can you even teach? That sound mind will not be there. So in terms of teaching and learning outcomes, in terms of, for example, look, now we are talking of the laptop policy where we are replacing textbooks with laptops or going to have a side-by-side situation. How do we improve teaching and learning outcomes through ensuring that the teacher gets the best? Mr. Musa was talking about the licensure exams and people failing and all of that. But if you want the quality, then the quality would also demand equal quality. If you want that quality from me, also give me quality when I am posted. What will be your wrap-up comments on that? And that will be the final point that we wrap up on, gentlemen. Mr. Pe.
Very important that I go back to my earlier point that we need to close the social inequality gap that exists. Once we begin to look at that approach, it means that the essential services that the teacher will need to in his or her community to be able to stay there for a long time, the teacher will get that and be accept posting them. But while we approach that dimension, it's very important that government pays fidelity to its own agreement with teachers. Teachers that are posted to deprived or underserved communities. You said you pay 20% of their 20% of their salary as allowance to them. As Mr. Musa mentioned, since 2009, that has never been done. And also, if you look at the deployment and the teacher transfer strategy by the Ghana Education Service, there are other things in there to ensure that the teachers that are posted to the deprived areas remain there. For instance, accelerated promotion for teachers, meaning that instead of they doing 3 years before promotion, they should do 2 years. They also have study leave for teachers in such area, meaning instead of doing 3 years before study leave, you do 2 years. And then also continuous professional development program the GSA, they will take the cost of that. Teachers would have that for free. And then also prioritize transfer. If you have been there for a number of years, if you want transferred, that will priority will be given to that. But if you look at all these nice things that are captured in the strategy, it comes to the point of how well the GS is implementing these particular strategies that they have identified. For me, I don't see the level of fidelity that they are playing to this very important strategy that they have lined. So they have to go back. The 20% that you promised, you need to go back and do that.
Right.
What's the name? The transfer that you promised that if you stay here for a very number of time, I can give you priority in the transfer. You have to pay fidelity to that. It's very important for government to pay priority to its own strategy that it has outlined. So for me, it has to go back to what government has outlined in its own strategy and be able to live to that.
Okay, so go back to what...
Yeah, but broadly, the district assembly, if you look at the Education Act 2020, it puts solely responsibility of improving the lots of teachers in terms of their accommodation and then also establishing school at the doorstep of the district assembly. So for me, it's very important that we begin to direct some of this focus to the district or local government so that they also live up to their expectation.
Thank you. Dr. Anti, quick thoughts on the way forward.
Well, I think government should prioritize some of the things that they are spending money on are not urgent and not important or not a priority at this time. I think that the government should look at its data and list or segregate the deprived schools from the ones that seems to be doing well, and then pay much attention to these schools and help bring them to a level that can be comparable to the schools that are not deprived. I think that should be the way to go. And I think that we should now, even with those who are appointed to head some of these institutions, we should set these targets for them. How many deprived schools were you able to improve when you got the appointment? These are some of the questions that we need to put to ministers, director generals, and other people that are heading our institutions.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Anti. Mr. Musa, you have the final word. Hello, Mr. Musa.
Thank you very much. For me, the promise in the 2023 budget must be kept. That we need to review some of our flagship programs, because as we speak now, all the needs and the requirements of the basic schools, government cannot do it alone. Therefore, it is about time that we do whatever we can do to get the parents, get the old boys, get other stakeholders to come and help us found or provide resources to the education as it stands now. If care is not taken, and government is always talking about that, because it is free, I want to do everything. Sooner or later, the basic schools will collapse on us. Believe you me, it will collapse on us. And so government must be flexible, review the current state of policies that we have regarding the basic education sector, and allow the PTA, allow the old boys, allow other stakeholders to come in, provide resources for both teachers and students, and let us take it up from there. Finally, I think my brother Ekpe was talking about the assemblies. Please, for the assemblies now, they are disabled. And I think time will not permit us to talk about them. When you are talking about these things, we should not even mention assemblies. They are just there. And please, I just want to be charitable this morning. Thank you very much. I want to leave it there.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. As for the conversation on teachers, it's an ending one, and we'll always come back to this until some things are done. Mr. Musa himself saying that in terms of the state of teachers, the well-being of teachers, he would rank that 3 out of 10. Dr. Anti giving a score of 2 out of 10, and Divine Pe refraining from giving a vote, but saying it leaves a lot to be desired. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. We've been joined by Thomas Musa, who is the General Secretary of the Ghana National Association of Teachers. We also had Dr. Peter Antipate, Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies, and Divine Pe, Programs Manager, Africa Education Watch. Divine, thank you as well.
Thank you, Ben.
Well, coming up next, it's a country bordered by Liberia and Guinea and their current leader won in the June 24 election. But there's been a lot of turmoil in Sierra Leone since that time, with the Sierra Leone People's Party winning, but the All People's Congress not accepting the results. We have details of that as we interact with the Minister for Information and Communication of Sierra Leone, Mohamed Rahman Suare. Remember, what happens there affects us in the sub-region. That conversation up next on the AM show. Do stay.